Changing Times Media, exploring new ideas that have the power to change the world.
Judgment is a non-functional aspect for the human brain. Judgment means I've weighed and evaluated all these things and I'm deciding what's right or wrong. In fact, 99% of our judgments are wrong. They're very inaccurate when it comes to what's really going on in the world. So now we enter a new thing that we're going to add to this. When a problem hits you, when you have something positive happen and you have something negative happens, we're suggesting that you look at it non-judgmentally. In other words, this is called mindfulness.
Right.
I'm not going to judge
That's right.
either my positive or negative thought. I'm going to watch it and observe
it. Yeah.
And this is what we see happen in the brain.
Yeah.
The moment you suspend judgment, you suspend all of the anxiety and depression that's part of those old behavioral patterns you have. And the cool thing is that those parts of your brain where consciousness reside, where they're just beginning to light up in the brain, become stronger and stronger and stronger simply by not judging. If you don't judge that you're anxious or depressed, you become less anxious and depressed. If you don't judge that you're not losing weight fast enough, you lose weight faster.
That's brilliant. And that is my experience. It is something I talk about, but to have you validate it from the standpoint of what is actually going on neurochemically is more than thrilling to me. I want to say, where have you been all my life?
Yeah.
You know? And I think that what's happening right now, because, look, if we talk about the diet industry, we don't have to go far into this, but it's predatory. It's preying on people's, it preys on a lot of their negative thinking. It preys on a lot of their desperation. And all of that isn't serving people. It really isn't.
We've been sold on the idea by the food industry that we should eat more, that whatever new product that's coming out in a new box is better for you than whatever was out there before. New, improved, and whatever else. This is neurological BS.
Yeah, no, and this is something, actually, we need to take a quick break. When we get back, I want to talk about that because this is important to know that there have been a number of shifts in our culture, because again, if we track this back, this is generational, multi-generational, and it's built over time. So I want to track back a little, because you told me something in we were having coffee actually, you said this to me. I've been enjoying our relationship since you first came on my show, and this conversation was really important because it puts in context how we got here. You know, we talk about the obesity crisis, and yet there's this idea that this happened overnight, and it didn't. So we're going to take a break. When we get back, I am strongly recommending you stay with us because Mark Robert Waldman has so much important information. His perspective is amazing, and I really believe there's value in it. Stay with us here on the Freeman Michaels Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Freeman Michaels Show here on KKZZ 1400 AM. This is Positive Talk Radio in Ventura County all day long. Today we are talking with Mark Robert Waldman, who is the author of 11 books, including his latest book with Andy Newberg called How God Changes the Brain. But he's been working lately on weight. He's developed a program, and Mark, you're working on a new book on this, right?
Yes, we have a whole program set up now. It's about 10 weeks long that combines mindful eating with weight loss, and it's all evidence-based. In other words, throw away all the models that are out there so far, and let's start from scratch. Let's just look at all the new scientific data that's come in about what's involved with why we don't lose weight, right, how we maintain our weight, what causes us to put that weight back on. And the funny thing is that losing weight itself doesn't work.
It doesn't. Mark, that's why I call it weight release. Correct. The idea is you have to release that it isn't just the weight. Sometimes the weight's the best way we've known how to protect ourselves from, let's say, unwanted attention, but also the patterns of behavior are the best way we've known how to cope. So if you just give them up and you have no plan to replace them, you're going to gain the weight back.
So that piece of paper that I explained to you, those three things,
right,
that's the behavioral change strategy. But that's not enough either, because you can change your behavior, you can change your but it doesn't change the way that you feel about anything inside. It doesn't change the way you feel about yourself. It doesn't change the way in which you feel about food. These are all unconscious processes. So here we come into the field of mindfulness, which grew out of the meditation research that Andy and I and Richie Davidson and other people have done as well. to discover that it's very easy to train yourself to become aware of these subtle thoughts and feelings, the unconscious processes going on, and all you have to do is breathe in deeply and just take a back seat and watch, because your consciousness will bring up all the time the thoughts and feelings that govern our old behaviors, and most of these you'll begin to hear is a bunch of noise and jabber. So if we breathe in deeply and keep watching all this noise, we end up in a more focused, relaxed, calm, serene place. And from here,
we make different choices.
We make different choices because when we're in that relaxed state, you feel good about yourself. Because every idea that you have, that you're feeling bad about yourself, or that you're a failure, or you're not succeeding at your goals, these are also fantasies.
Yes.
So when you come into the present moment through mindfulness, you're suspending. What I'm saying is that poor self-esteem is a fantasy, an idea that was built in childhood.
And you keep affirming it and reaffirming it, and at some point, okay, congratulations, that's what you are. But that the moment in time that there's an idea, and I like the idea of rooting the idea in positive aspects of ourselves that we can recognize and build upon, on qualities that we find fulfilling. And from that perspective, this mindful, conscious perspective, we begin to affirm and support a positive self-image consciously moving forward.
Let me explain from a neuroscientific point of view why
Please.
that's so hard to do. One single negative idea, even hearing the word no, all of you, I have just actually damaged some neurons in your brain with that one word.
Ouch!
Yes, a good ouch. And yet, if I say yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, well, some of your imagination might go to all kinds of things. I'm going to
Go.
But the brain doesn't pay much attention to this. Your brain is designed to pay attention to negative thoughts because it's a potential threat to your survival.
All right, we're back to
The amygdala, we're back to the survival.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So
That's your default mechanism.
Yes.
So if you want to build an affirmative point of view, and if you don't build an affirmative point of view, you're going to literally take years off of your life. That's what the research shows. You have to keep re-emphasizing positive thinking, affirmations over and over and over again. You may have to do 100 positive affirmations to get rid of one sentence saying, I can't do it, or I'm a failure.
Right.
Okay. Well, here I'm going to announce this, Mark, because we've been talking off air about putting together a webinar, because your work and my work, it's just as I hear you say this is what I'm doing with people. Again, what I love about what you bring to it is you bring the research. You bring a very real, almost clinical way of viewing this that supports so much of what I'm doing. And I'll be honest, I believe that I can tweak much of what I'm doing based on what you bring. So I'm going to announce that, if it's okay with you.
Absolutely.
That we're planning, and stay tuned to the Freeman Michaels Show. I mean, it'll be on the website when we're going to actually do this webinar, because I do think that so many of the principles that I teach are matching up with the principles you teach, and we're both coming at this from different vantage points. I come at it from the personal development, life coaching model, and you're coming at it from the neuroscience model, but we both arrive at the same place, which is, look, so much of the negative thinking is fueling the negative behavior, and in order to get to positive thinking, we have to create this repetitive way of retraining the brain. And also, I'm going to talk for a minute here, the space between stimulus and response. We have a reactive brain. When we have stimulus, and this was what you were talking about earlier, whether it's positive or negative, we are inclined oftentimes to react unconsciously, especially with negative stimulus. But what this mindful process, I call it developing a conscious, compassionate observer. What it does is it actually widens the space between stimulus and response.
Does it widen the space between stimulus and response? Yes, in the sense that you are actually increasing activity in a key part of your brain called the anterior cingulate.
Oh, yes.
And this is the area.
I read about this in your book. This is fascinating.
Moral decision making is this part of the brain.
Yes.
Fast intuitive processing, even social awareness is in this part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that decides what's right and what's wrong for you or for the group of people that you are within.
Now, what I understand about this is it isn't actually fully developed. This is part of the frontal lobe, and it's not fully developed till we're, in our 20s, right?
No, it's barely online. It doesn't come, it's not fully developed till you're 28.
28,
This is why if you're younger than 28, you are quite impaired when it comes to having self-compassion or genuine compassion towards other individuals.
It's fascinating
Because I have a 21-year-old, and I'm watching a little bit of what he's bringing in terms of stimuli. I'm watching the shows he's watching on let's say, MTV, and it's pretty brutal. And I'm like, gosh, why, and to help him understand that this kind of judgmental, narrow-minded, it's mean-spirited kind of programming, that's what I'm calling it. And I think about so much of the places where I've gotten hung up. I call them my hang-ups, right? Hung up in my life is built on the teen years, on some of the mean-spirited things that happened in junior high, high school, maybe even college.
Because it wakes you up.
Yes.
Like I said, the catch-22 with being compassionate and loving is that as far as your primitive brain is concerned, when you are loving and caring of yourself and others, it puts you to sleep, actually. So the problem with young kids is that they're half asleep anyway, because they've been staying up all night playing all those games.
That's right. That's true. Well, no, but I mean, this is also where, advertising and movies, oftentimes it goes to the lowest common denominator. We go to action, we go to sex, because sex, I mean, they use sex to sell anything from toilet tissue to toothpaste, because it grabs your attention, right?
That's an interesting way of putting it. I suppose if we tie the two together and say, if you lose weight, you'll become a vampire, we'll probably have a lot more teenagers losing weight.
That's exactly right.
Because it's that place at which, where can you grab their attention? And again, it's operating on that very primitive part of our brain.
You could literally suck the vitamins out of your friend.
Oh, we got to get out more. We're getting old, Mark. All right, but the point is, and this is the really crux of this, is, and what is exciting, is that there is a new way of thinking, folks, a new way of thinking about our patterns of behavior. If we can be compassionate with ourselves and calculative, that's what Mark is talking about, is that there is a way to make positive choices. And this is not just some half-baked idea. This is neurologically provable, that the kinds of practices that Mark is speaking of, self-honoring, the meditation, actually working to quiet the mind. I want to transition a little, Mark, into mindful eating, because that seems to be a really critical piece.
Yes.
That it isn't just that we do these things in general, but quite specifically to design a practice, a ritualized practice around eating specifically is critical. Explain that for me.
Mindful eating is more important than weight loss. Actually, if you lose all the weight that you want to lose, you may only be adding a year or two onto your life. Whereas if you eat mindfully and then you take that mindfulness practice and apply it to everything, walking to your car, talking with other people, you will literally add several years to your life, but you will have the subjective experience of well-being that will continue all the way to the very end. So it's very interesting. It's very counterintuitive. Losing weight is not about weight. If you want to lose weight, you have to throw away that idea.
That's what I
You
said.
have to become mindful of what you are eating.
That's right.
You're overweight because of what you are eating.
You're eating more than your body actually needs.
You're not overweight because you're a couch potato. You can exercise for 45 minutes a day, high aerobics, and you're only going to take care of a couple of pounds. The research evidence is pretty definitive. It's not about exercising. That won't help you lose weight.
Right.
Eating less calories will help you lose weight, but now you're depriving yourself of stuff that gives you a sense of pleasure, even though most of that pleasure is an old memory, like I said in the previous show.
Yeah, that was so interesting. And I want to almost bring that back and remind people that before we're actually putting the food in our mouth, neurochemically, the experience that we would associate with that food starts in advance of the food actually touching our palate.
As a fantasy.
As a fantasy.
So we're thinking about all the foods we've eaten in the past that have given us pleasure, and then we're picking one of those memories, we're selecting our food, and if we actually pay attention to our actual food, we'll find out it's not as good as the memory that we've created, because positive memories improve with age. Our memories of our positive childhood experiences are better than the actual experience itself is. So what happens is that, as I've said before, we're eating our memories. We're eating our positive memories, and we're not paying attention to how this food actually tastes and how it's actually affecting our body. So we come back to mindfulness again.
Arriving in the now, actually being in a relationship, making conscious choices, and then actually experiencing the food and having an authentic, now, present experience and relating to the food in our body in a different way.